Well, here we are in April. You look at the very top, you'll see those tomato plants are actually inside the greenhouse are starting to get some flowers on them. Those were grown from seeds in the house back in late January, February. This is inside my outdoor mini greenhouse, which isn't much bigger than the TARDIS. In fact, I was thinking of designing a door maybe this summer, painting it to look like the TARDIS. I have a little heat map in there, or heat mat, because it's been getting down. There's the TARDIS door. Since it's been getting down to about 36 at night, I just had to put another one of these makeshift rainwater cat litter collectors up because I left the last one out over winter and it froze and cracked, but luckily I had another one laying around outside which was filled with water, but for some reason that one didn't crack. I hope there's no cracks in it. Anyway, I just put a old handle on the bottom. This has an overflow that shoots water out the other side. I have a bigger container on the other side of the garage that gets about 30 gallons. This one obviously just is however many gallons are in that thing, a few gallons. I use that just for mostly the plants in the greenhouse, just to get some quick watering. And it works well. I guess I could have painted over it, but we're kind of crude here, down to basics. I'm not getting featured in any magazine. Look at that little patch of blue sky up there. It was, even though the weather was about 40 degrees back here in this area, because the sky was so clear mostly, I swear I got a sunburn on my face in between when I was taking a little breather on my lounge chair in between little odd jobs I've been doing today. So here we are, 29 more days in the US of A for this lockdown. And I don't mind much anyway, because I'm pretty much, apart from going to the grocery store to try and get some toilet paper, which everyone else seems to have stolen or hoarded, I should say. I pretty much, now that the weather's starting to get a little bit better, I'm spending most of my time in my backyard, my garage workshop, and or doing things around the house. This is pretty beat up from the winter. I've got to scrape all the paint off the TARDIS door there and do something to clean that up. I'll probably just end up painting it. Maybe I'll just paint it white. I don't know. We'll see. But it's more and more looking like this thing that's out there infecting people, came from some sort of biolab, and whether or not it was bioengineered or not, it definitely came out of that lab. I mowed my lawn with a hand mower. Here's a little view of my neighborhood. You can see through the fence there, which normally you don't get to see. It's a nice little out of town neighborhood. I've talked about this before. Very inexpensive property. Small yard, but south facing, so I get the sun, definitely from May till October or late September. This whole yard is just, totally engulfed in sunlight. But as you can see, I'm close to adjoining neighbors, adjoining the property, so it's but they hardly come out. I don't really have a lot of people bothering me or around me. I did some repairs on this. This is one of my big raised bed boxes that's still waiting for soil. I'm keeping cardboard over these for now, just to keep weed roots from growing. And then I'll probably add a good 1.5 foot of soil in there, ideally. Though there's some old onions growing. For some reason the camera has gotten blurry, I've noticed. But I'm going to continue with this because I already shot this and I'm in the house. But you'll get the idea. It's slow-mo. And maybe that's doing it, but I don't know. The flowers before seem pretty clear, and I don't have any adjustment on the focus here, so whatever's going on is just some game. This is an iPhone that I just used to listen to music and do this sort of thing with, so I don't know why it's doing that. But I'm kind of burned out, like most people are, with this whole virus thing, and just wishing they would use those various drugs that have shown promise, even success in many parts of the country, including this country, and just say, hey, let's give it to people and let's just get on with this thing. Or talk more about, did you notice how, as a gardener, as somebody who, eats healthy, cooks myself, do you notice how, if you ever watch these briefings, or anyone, whether they're the media who are criticizing the people trying to do something, or whether it's the people trying to do something, telling you what they're doing, doesn't really matter. One thing that's missing across the board from the so-called mainstream media and politicians is the idea of nutrition. They talk about this affects people with weakened immune systems and those kinds of health problems, but they don't go out and tell you that you should be chopping fresh garlic. There's my oregano that has bounced back really well. Very blurry. I'm disappointed with this. There's no reason. It almost looks like there's some effect on there, doesn't it? Like some... Anyway, disappointing. I'm going to continue with the video. Let's talk. But the idea is, if you get 4 cloves of garlic on a cutting board, hit it with the side of your knife so you kind of crush them a bit, and then chop them up finely and let them sit for 5 or 10 minutes, and it releases this allicin, I don't know the proper pronunciation of it. It's kind of a very strong, not so much sulfury, but if you would put one of those pieces in your mouth, it would actually burn a little bit. Well, anyway, you set that aside, make yourself a salad or a soup. If you're making a salad, it's no big deal. Add it to the salad at the end, mix it in with, if you've got salad dressing and stuff, and you won't even notice it. I also put some turmeric with some black pepper. That's another anti-inflammatory, antiviral type of stuff. And then eat vegetables that have things like zinc in them, that are natural anti-inflammatories. And you can just research anywhere. I don't have to give you a laundry list of this. I've included that kind of stuff in my previous books, even recipes on how to make soups and things of that sort. But if they would talk about that and tell people that, hey, you can boost your immune system, in a week or so. Or while you're sitting at home, why don't you make yourself, a fresh salad, a soup, things of that sort that will actually make you strong enough to resist a virus. But they don't. They don't tell you this. You know, it's like going out and getting sunlight, vitamin D3, to get that vitamin D from the sun. It activates all kinds of receptors in the human body that help you function properly as a human being. We're meant to be in the sun without sunscreen. And if it's the wintertime, take a D3. The same with vitamin C. I mean, I'm not one of these people that pops these vitamin pills. I know some people like to pop those things. I just like to get it naturally. You could get vitamin C from so many fruits and vegetables, and you could get vitamin D from so many foods. And the sun, of course. This is my 4-square gardening thing we talked about in the last video. And the burlap, which, you know, is, like I say, this looks like it's some kind of oil painting. Under there I planted some cilantro, and there's some sage left over from last year to the far right that seems to be growing, so I'm going to let it there. And I believe I put in some maybe thyme in the upper center upper right. And there's 2 leftover onion plants that I don't think I'm going to keep them there. I've got those things all over the darn place. So nutrition should be the first thing that we deal with. The second thing we deal with, as I said, should be these drugs that exist, like the malaria drug, the Z-Pak combo, and some of these other things that people are taking, so that instead of people worrying about all the social distancing, washing hands, and what to do if you sneeze or something. I mean, isn't it common sense to wash your hands? Isn't it common sense to sneeze or cough into a handkerchief? Or it's funny, but it's sad. To see that people want to be treated like such babies, and their parents haven't taught them the basic, essentials of hygiene, normal hygiene. No wonder these viruses and flus, are around all the time. No wonder the flu kills 20, 30,000 people a year. And the social distancing, like I was getting in the last time, when I went down to the grocery store, so they got all these like sneeze guards up on the counters and stuff. But then again, when it's time to pay for your order, everybody just pushes the keypad, has to put their PIN in the keypad to pay with their debit card. But nobody's wiping off the keypad every time. So there you go, It's as if they tell you these things, but they don't know why they're telling you those things. They're not really to protect you. It's nonsense. It's really crazy and bizarre. This kale here, again, which is coming off as an oil painting. This happens every now and then on this iPhone, but it hasn't happened in a while, and we started out so crystal clear that I'm really I'm baffled on why and how it decides that it's going to do something like this. This kale survived the winter, and I'm going to plant some more kale in here, maybe some chard on the left. And again, I've got these onions growing everywhere that I'm just going to start yanking them, chopping them up, use them as like, what do they call them, scallions, or like chives or something like that. And of course, my stinging nettle, which is another thing which is supposedly a wonder drug. You take stinging nettle, be careful not to get stung by it. But you just clip it off with the scissors, put it in some kind of little container and steep it to make a drink out of it. And you get so many vitamins and nutrients from that. People talk about these superfoods. Stinging nettle is one of those like hidden secret superfoods. The very tip of this old leftover kale stalk looks crystal clear, but everything else is out of focus. I mean, is that what's happening here? I don't know. It's crazy. So what happens after these 29 days? By then it'll be May 1st. For most people in the U.S., the weather will have changed. There will be a lot more sun and clouds. The temperatures will be higher. The flu season will have been over for a month. Viruses aren't living, but the type of things that viruses tend to attack usually are living, cellular things that people, breathe in. I don't know. It's so confusing. Everyone's got a different theory. I've heard everything from the heat killing these things off to where you can't kill something if it's not alive. It's just something that affects the RNA of a cell. It's just all kinds of things, to the bioengineered bioweapons that came out of this Wuhan virology lab. There's actually 2 of those type labs around Wuhan, China, that deal with these sorts of biological contagions. So we really don't know. And now even the mainstream are starting to realize that China lied, and that whether or not this was accidentally leaked from this, lab or labs, that it certainly had nothing to do with that market and some particular bat soup from that market. It's more looking like has been engineered and somehow got released. Crazy times that we live in, that's for sure. But back here in my little neck of the woods, paradise, in this glass-covered little box, my lettuce is coming up, the radishes in the middle, and beets there on the end. 2 more days supposedly where the nights get down below 40. Once we're above 40, I'm not going to worry too much about having the glass covers on here. And plus, now that the plants have broken through, I'm not worried too much about the birds perhaps getting in there and kicking around, or having taken the seeds, or just messing with things. We'll see the new bird feeder in a few, and that seems to keep them occupied. Though I've got to watch out for the robins, because they're always digging for worms. And one thing I'm lucky about, my soil is, every time I just dig to plant, there's a worm. And I see all these other people, the homesteaders on YouTube, and people who are trying to give gardening advice, and they're always talking about how to do this and how to get, the worms and the soil and the compost. And I'll tell you, my soil just seems to be naturally just so full of worms. And it's just, I don't know. I've been using this backyard garden for 5 years now, and stuff's growing. I'm eating almost year round now. I'm close to it. Within the next year or so, once my apple tree starts producing, and if I have a good potato and carrot crop this year, the squashes, those things I think I ate my last squash in a soup in January of this year. It's how far I'm extending my, the things that I grow. And I had potatoes, way into December. Carrots too, making soups and things of that sort. I still have all this space, all this lawn, wasted grass space that eventually I guess I'll just plant long rows here of things. Yeah, look at this. It looks like I added a special effect to make it look like a watercolor like they have in Photoshop, but I'm telling you I didn't. And through the lens, I didn't. It looked normal to me, so I don't know why it's like modeled like that. It's weird. Because this is high definition camera capability. In this spot on the lawn last year, and you can see little straggling pieces of stalk things, this is where I just let my squash grow all along cover this whole area. And I'll do that again this year. So I'll just keep the grass down for a while and let it stalk. Let this all get filled with squash. Hopefully butternut squash. They seem to be the healthiest. I just put this post in that we're seeing in the upper part of the screen, and that's a little wooden box on the bottom where I could put some raw seeds, and the cardinals and some of those birds, they like the sunflower type seeds, the bigger seeds, but also a lot of the birds. I get a lot of birds in my yard. And there's a little bird seed container that drops the seed down. I put the tiny bird seed in there for the smaller birds. But I have to put bird seed out every day. It's pretty occupied. And occasionally I have a chipmunk that comes in and stuffs its cheeks. That little path leads to my house and the front street, my back entrance. It's getting a little clearer now. That's nice. But yeah, I just got myself a 4x4 treated lumber, bag of fast setting concrete, dug a hole, put the post in, pretty much leveled it by eyeballing it, and put that there. The reason I put the bird feeder over there, which used to be, we'll see as we're in slow-mo now, as we get to the right, it was too close. The old bird feeder was too close to the garden and my apple tree, which this year I'm hoping that will produce better. Well, I will produce, period. Or at least get to the point that next year it will be a producer. But it's got a lot of branches on it right now. It's small, but I'm just hoping this is going to be a big growth year. That tree in front is just like a maple tree. I left it there just kind of for the birds. See here, this pole here was an old, I guess probably a line to hang laundry on when I bought the house. And I had the bird feeder on that. And you could see how the ground around it is all just dug up from the birds. That little thing behind it is another apple tree that I planted. But this one right here that's coming up to the right, this is the apple tree, which is, is thick. And I guess I didn't go up tall on this or not to show you more of it, but it's doing very well considering it was from an apple I ate and I planted a seed inside and then transplanted it. And back to the old watercolor grass again. And watercolor kale here I see. This kale's doing pretty good. This was left over the winter. And those two metal circles, I put in some fresh dirt weeded that area. I just put that there to keep, sometimes a cat gets in my yard, and just to keep any animals from thinking it's a litter box or messing around with it. There's nothing planted in there just yet. But that kale looks like I'm going to start probably picking it, I guess. Next to it, I put a bean plant that I had grown inside that's looking really, really sad. But it was looking sad in the outdoor greenhouse too. So I'm hoping that, I just put it out there, I think the other day, yesterday. So I'm hoping that maybe it might take a week, that it'll come back to life. If it doesn't, it's a pea plant. I mean, you know how easy it is to grow peas or beans. And if you don't, it's really easy. You just put the seed in the ground and the things pop up. So this is another one of my raised bed boxes. I see how I tapered it off. It was kind of a neat effect. But basically, because I was taking boxes I had built earlier and adding to them, and obviously some of the wood had sunken into the ground and things weren't level, so I decided to just, well, I'm just going to taper these things down, make them look like that was intentional. I did it on this other side too that we're about to see. And I may go at them and sand them even smoother so that they actually are almost seamless. I don't know yet. Yeah, there's that bean or pea plant that isn't looking too great. It's kind of yellowy. It should be a darker green. We'll see what happens though. I found this little metal trellis thing at the Dollar Tree for obviously $1. I think I'm going to get about 5 or 6 more of those and put them in between this split box. So what I might do is plant some beans and peas kind of against where that piece of wood is. I'll have trellises along there. And then on the other side, actually, I'm not sure what I'll put in there. That piece of metal hanging there was because I still may do it, I sometimes put a piece of glass when I first plant something, again for the reason to keep a bird or something from digging up the seed when I plant sow directly into the ground. You just got to do that kind of thing when you're out, you know, when you've got so many birds and critters, you know, hanging around. I let this wild grass grow because on the other side is my little makeshift pond, and that was just something that seemed neat, and it kind of turned out well for me. But I'm not too worried about this whole COVID thing. You know, I feel bad for these cities, but you know, I've seen the videos where they're, you know, these mayors in these various cities and congressmen were out there saying, come out, go to Chinatown, do this, go to this, do this. You know, they were saying this just even a couple of weeks ago. And they went, while everyone else was saying, hey, don't. And so it's like they put all these people together because they were afraid, afraid they were being xenophobic so they were trying to say everybody go to Chinatown or something. It's like, or don't everybody go to a Chinese restaurant? It's like, what's xenophobic about saying, hey, don't go to an Italian restaurant? Don't go to any restaurant, you know, for a couple of weeks till we figure out what this thing is. But instead in other words, they're so obsessed with trying to be politically correct or to play to some demographic or political group that they, in effect, have, you know, killed them. I mean, that's the really sad thing about it. Against the fence here, that's burlap. I put in a bunch of flowers in there. So I get wild mint growing along there as well, or intermixed in there. Really good mint. You know, you can put that mint in, you know, in a drink, or I put it in. I make lemonade sometimes, and I'll just crush up some of those mint leaves in it, or you can put it in ice cream. You can do anything with it. It's really good. But I've got a bunch of wildflowers I'm going to be planting along there. Sometimes it takes me a couple of tries to get the flowers to take. And then there are some flowers that I don't know why, but they take so long to really, like, they'll start popping up, they'll grow a foot tall, but there will be no flower on them. These are flowers. And then they'll eventually get a foot and a half. Now we're into August. And then, like, at the end of August, they'll start flowering with these unbelievable flowers that you would, like, see in a florist shop. And from the end of August, or for the entire month of September, my yard looks, you know, I could probably open a florist. But it takes them, I have no idea why it takes them, like, the entire summer for them to grow. And I have so many of these seeds because once they grow, every flower, I mean, I give flowers to people or whatever. I mean, but every flower contains, ends up being like, I don't know, 50 seeds are in there. So right now I have like thousands and thousands of seeds. So I'll just plant them all along the fence. But there's some kind of mutated thing. It almost looks like a carnation or a wild rose or something weird like that. There's no sticker, you know, no thorns on them or anything like that. But if you followed my videos or have seen last year's videos, you can see what I'm talking about. There's the apple tree. You see how all little side branches and stuff coming out of it? So this is the third year for this. So it's done very good. Again, remember, 3 years from a seed. I have a little pole next to it because it was windy, but I don't probably yank that out this year because it looks like the base is thicker than the pole I put up to sturdy it. So if I've got that much growth, I'm hoping this year this thing really gets thick, bigger, and more branches. And hopefully I think people say by the 4th year you should get apples. I wouldn't be surprised if I didn't get some blossoms and maybe an apple tries to grow on it, but this year. But I'm definitely counting on next year having apples. That's why the companion tree on the other side of it, which is I'm hoping that'll be something to cross-pollinate it. And again, along here is where the wild mint is. And last year I had a squash over on this side too. And I had some tomatoes, little, I call them cherry tomatoes, but they were little yellow, small cherry tomatoes. That doesn't make sense, but I guess whatever you call those small yellow ones. That grew wild from the previous year. I had a bunch of them. Those seeds are all in that dirt. I think they're just going to pop up on their own. This is my little pond here. Some weird sculpture of two people embracing. I got from the neighbor, just laying in her yard. I said, "Do you want that thing?" She was like throwing it away. And I've got two little mini solar things there that keep the water pumping. The one's for a waterfall, but it's all clogged right now. I left it out over winter. I'll probably get a new one this year. And this is my view of my mini little greenhouse where we started this video. This is the other side. In there is where I'll grow my peppers and lettuce, and hopefully tomatoes will grow in this bed here. Again, I've got cardboard down to just keep not have to deal with weeds, because I've already spent a long time digging through that dirt, pulling out roots and weeds and things like that. So that dirt should be pretty good. And here's my chair where I get my sun, the workshop door, and that blue thing to the far right is my other rainwater collection tank. And excuse me for blowing my nose, it was either that or I would sneeze. And that's the other side. And my other boxes. Again, this place looks pretty, low rent. But, once I get the cardboard out and the dirt in there and things growing, it should be fun. If you like any of this stuff, visit my channel, rockflux.com. Get a t-shirt. I'll be making new t-shirts. I've got some nice ones up there. I have about 8 books for sale. I've got 2 CDs. Feel free to support. It's good music. Listen to my beat poetry. Till the next time.